by traumatized babies and mentally ill Barbies. I am not doing the regular intro and outro today because this is not a reading. I would just like to talk some about my personal opinions on conspiracy theory. And what I personally believe about things like that. I'll probably be talking a little bit about Katt Williams and what I think is more likely to be the reality of way more of the sort of Illuminati-based conspiracy theories that we get circulating around, as well as I might end up talking a little bit about QAnon ARGs and manifestation, and how those things tend to work together, because I find that very, very interesting. So just to start off with, I believe that obviously conspiracy exists, except it is usually not what you hear about in like the kind of wild world of conspiracy theory. So a lot of the QAnon stuff and things that are sort of more like that, like with QAnon, you have stuff about like Majestic 12 and shadow governments shadow governments within the organization, organizations of government. Let's see, what other kind of, that the government knows all about like UFOs and they broker deals like between like aliens and people and all of that. First of all, about the government and aliens, I don't think the government has anything relevant about non-human beings, period. They might have more data on things that do manifest in the sky just because they have access and track the data from the military, and the military happens to be in the sky and like looking around there more than the standard person is. So they might have more hard data on particular sightings that cannot be explained, but that does not mean that those are non-human beings or non-human craft or whatever. It just means they don't know what they saw. And it is my personal opinion that most of the stuff that comes out of the government about potentially non-human beings or UFOs is mainly some sort of distraction from some sort of like foreign policy thing that's going on, because everybody then focuses on, the aliens and the UFOs, what's happening? Is the government finally going to admit something? And then they never ever do. It's just kind of designed to distract from something else. It's my personal opinion on that. However, I do believe that it is beneficial for the government and government bodies to be speaking about non-human beings. Well, they don't really talk about non-human beings yet. They do talk about UFOs, and media in general is like inching toward beginning to talk about the potentiality of non-human beings in a serious way. Unfortunately, this is mostly coming from outlets like Fox News. And so for me, there's always an agenda there, which is Fox News, they just know that Q is Q is a significant and also very zealoty and passionate voter base for them. And they know that there's like a lot of alien conspiracy theory that goes on in Q. And so to like keep those people like loyal to them and voting how they want them to vote potentially, they will give the alien and UFO thing credibility. But it's what's weird about that though is that it potentially works to our benefit. I get very iffy about that though, because a lot of Fox News that's very like Christian evangelical centered, and the Christians and evangelicals just think that's all demons. And so if Fox News controls the narrative on like the experiencer and like actual non-human being aspect of the whole alien narrative, then there's probably something weird eventually that's going to go on with that about aliens being demons and like experiencers all being like demon possessed or being controlled by the devil or something like that. So I don't know how I feel about that one, because I feel like there's probably something nefarious that could go on there besides just like activating the Q base when they want to, or making the Q base feel like they have validity. Okay, that's what I think about that, and that's what I think about government involvement with alien beings. However, I am not actually sure about Roswell. I'm leaning more towards that, like, Roswell could have been an actual event, but that most of the narratives surrounding it after the fact are not real. They're just using that conveniently as, again, some sort of like distraction or whatever. So that's what I think about conspiracy theory. There is usually some like kernel or element of truth in there, and then people blow it like way out of proportion. So obviously stuff like, what is it, the Tuskegee Airmen experiment? I forget if that's the right thing, but that's when they infected black men with like syphilis. I'm pretty sure it was, just to see what would happen, just to see, like, there's just been a lot of conspiracy in regards to marginalized communities that that's been specifically about like medical experimentation. That actually happened. So that is a documented conspiracy, and also CIA involvement with black communities, like with Dr. King and Malcolm X, and what was that, Black Wall Street? Like, I'm very like fuzzy on that, but like I don't know a lot about that. But like there's a very long history of the government interfering, at least with black people in America. So I mean, like, come on. And that's real. That's not a fake thing. What is also real is, the brainwashing thing. I'm never going to remember it when I need to remember it. Hold on a second. Oh, it's the one where they experimented on, like, I think it was PTSD veterans returning from Vietnam or something like that. Again, I don't know. I don't really involve myself too much in conspiracy theory. Like, obviously, I'm into high strangeness and paranormal stuff, and that lends itself into that world. But, like, I tend to avoid, like, conspiracy theories involving the government and like speculating about stuff like that, because I think it's a waste of time, because I don't think they know anything, and that the actual conspiracies that are going on there are really horrible, but it has to do with like doing terrible things to other countries, or something with like domestic espionage, where they're like potentially monitoring citizens that are involved with like some potential sort of radical political change. That's what that is going to be. Like, they're not really going to, like, an actual conspiracy is not going to be happening to a standard person who is just talking about aliens, in my opinion. Or a standard person who is just talking about like the government being involved with like magic or non-human beings or whatever. Like, they're just really not going to do it. Like, it's not a thing to me. It's not a thing. And I think that if you are someone, especially if you're someone who has never been involved with the government and the military and all this stuff, and you are feeling like you are a targeted individual, still, again, I would very much advise you to be screened. And if your thoughts are running towards the lines of, well, no matter where I go, they are a they, that is unwellness. That is not true. And I'm going to keep repeating that over and over again. That is not true. It is likely that, I mean, obviously you are a very important person, and if you are potentially being targeted by beings or whatever, like, I would see that happening before I would say anything about the government. But if you are, that just means that you need to get something straightened out with your energetic alignment, which still means therapy and potentially medication to get that all arranged with you. And then you will be able to go on and speak your truth without being interference or being targeted by anything. I promise you have power over that. And if like there is some they who wants you to feel the way they want you to feel, well, they're winning. They're winning. You are a powerful being, okay? Nobody can do anything to you in that capacity. And I promise you, unless you are like Edward Snowden or something like that, and you have like actual freaking hacked data, like, it's not happening. It's not happening to you. at least not in that capacity, okay? Like gang stalking, when it's like a regular person, that is something like gang bullying. It's almost like gang stalking is a shrill term. But yes, people do get ganged up on by like coworkers, by people in social communities. And yes, like things can go on in like local government and things like that, but no, it is not like a psyop. Like that's just people being bullies. That is way more typical for someone to be dealing with than like the stuff going on at the large scale. Again, the only time something is going to be going on with you in the large scale is if you are a large scale person. So if you are someone who is like an actual celebrity, if you actually had some sort of information because you worked in espionage in the government, if you actually somehow got actual information about someone of some importance within like a crime syndicate or whatever, that's when something like potentially really could happen. But unless that is the case, most of the gang stalking or targeting that's going to go on with individuals is going to come in the form of much smaller social groups. And this does happen when people try to actually solve problems and speak truth within a social group. Because typically what is going on is that everybody actually already knows the truth, but for some reason they want to preserve the dynamics in some capacity. So what they'll do is they'll just like protect the abuser and then scapegoat and target the person who is like actually like saying out loud what everybody already knows. That's what's going on there. That's why people tend to be targeted, but they can be bullied for other reasons entirely. They just don't fit in. That happens to a lot of neurodivergent people because they can't read social cues. That is way more common when it comes to gang stalking because people are weird and messed up and they will like go after people who they feel like are easy targets. I'm saying I don't know why, but that is animal nature and human beings are animals and yes, they can be predators. So those are my thoughts on like targeted individuals and gang stalking. Let me think if there's anything else I want to say about conspiracy theory. So realities about certain, and I still haven't figured out the name of the brainwashing thing. That's gonna MK Ultra. There we go. MK Ultra is a real thing. That actually happened. I believe that went on, but I do not believe that like everyone who's an experiencer or whatever was like somehow abducted and it's all like the entire experiencer experience. Like if you are getting abducted by aliens, it is because like it's actually the CIA like doing MK Ultra on you. No, I don't believe that at all. The CIA, frankly, is not magically coordinated enough to pull that off. No. I don't know that any magical system actually is. Which explains why nobody's done the 7 jump. Because trust me, if the government could do the 7 jump and have that under their control, they would have done it by now. So either they don't care, they don't think anybody else is going to do it, or they can't do it for whatever reason. So, or I'm just totally wrong about the whole thing. I do believe that there is some magical aptitude or spiritual aptitude or psychic aptitude within government agencies. I think it tends to be very small because I think most of the government tends to find that kind of stuff laughable or straight up demonic because of the evangelical stuff. So it tends to be very small groups of people who don't get a lot of funding, but I do believe that it does exist because obviously like the Stargate project, all of that stuff exists. We have documentation on it, if that's just not a huge psyop. And here's the thing about that. Here is something that I'll get kind of like weirdly paranoid about. Not really paranoia, but I question it. Why would you ever, like I'm pretty sure it's the CIA who did Project Stargate and they have like audio tapes that you can listen to. Why would you ever listen to like subliminals and audio stuff created by the CIA? Why would you do that? So I think that's kind of weird. I think it's weird that that's all like public. I'm pretty sure you have to pay for it, but I'm just like, yeah, no, that's all right. I'll do my stuff on my own. I don't need any like CIA audio tapes. No, thank you. But so I do believe that that stuff does go on in the government. And so that there's likely some involvement at like the magical level, at least with like monitoring or whatever, that does potentially go on. That seems kind of cracked out to me. And I don't know, like I'm telling you, if it's a government thing, it's a very, very small agency, most likely. But like the type, like when I talk about the stuff in the yellow transmissions, I promise you those like aren't like government people for the most part. Like it's going to be private bodies and private entities that have their own like occult interests. That's where that's coming from. And they're probably like maybe loosely affiliated. They might know of each other or they might not. So, but I don't think that it is at all ridiculous to necessarily believe that, because I'm sorry, but way back in the day, one of the biggest, almost successful, horrific movements was the Nazi Party, and they literally had like an occult like based army. Like, so I don't know why historically we can look back and see that there are like weirdo occult things going on in other governments and other political movements and things like that, and we just go, oh, but that's not happening now. It is happening now, very much likely. It's just a matter of whether you believe that that is something that is actually effective or not. Because obviously, like, people can be participating in the occult or what we're calling magic, and like most people will just be like, oh yeah, but that's like it was weird, certainly, but like that didn't have any real effect on like potentially the Nazi Party or the results of the World War or whatever, besides the fact that it just fueled the psychosis. Like, that's what most people are going to feel like when they hear about that kind of stuff. They might not believe the magic actually worked. They're just going to be like, yeah, weirdo shit goes on. And that's actually my biggest thing. Yeah, weirdo shit goes on at all levels. If it's going on at the local level or within your social circle, it's probably going on at the macroscopic level too. But so now I'm gonna get into like Katt Williams and stuff like that. I believe some of what Katt Williams said, mainly pertaining to kind of weird stuff that goes on within the realms of people with lots of money who, like, it's difficult to challenge them without being harmed, and who also have enough money that the law is not going to affect them. The issue, like, all of that kind of stuff tends to get like lumped together into the Illuminati. And Illuminati is an incredibly outdated term. And the thing is, most people, what they mean by Illuminati is wealthy people who know each other, who also tend to exploit other people due to their power and influence, and who also sometimes get together in groups and have kinky sex. Yes, I believe all of that goes on. I think it goes on regularly, but it has nothing to do with the Illuminati or the occult. Those people just have money and power. Their palates tend to get jaded, and so they start doing like progressively weirder stuff as like they have to like get more stimulus in some other way. Like when you have access to everything materially, but you really don't have, you're not in touch with like yourself personally, or like your soul, if you want to call it that, but it's just your character, your integrity, your empathy, your connection to other human beings. If you are not as in touch with that, or if along the way you've been progressively separated from that, then yes, you're going to end up doing bizarre things to other people as you get increasingly more power. And these standard pleasures of the world are no longer going to affect you in the same way. That's why these things tend to escalate, and you end up into like utter depravity with, you know, the worst sort of stuff that I really don't want to get into, because obviously the type of conspiracy that Q is talking about with kids, that kind of stuff obviously goes on. But it's not like how they're talking about. And here's the thing, I will grant you that it's not like the horrible occult stories never go on with like violence or like obviously not animal sacrifice. You just have to go to another culture who doesn't think about the way Americans think about animals to get more into that. But as far as kids go and people go, yeah, like that does happen sometimes. Usually it's more of an isolated event that grows out of the hysteria of a specific community that's just talking about weird crap. And then what happens is someone who is dealing with a mental health issue that has like delusional features, psychotic features, they get all that stuff in their head and they are already in a space where they will potentially act on it in a violent way. Because they've been fed all of this garbage. Most people listening to that are just going to be like, that's freaking weird, or ooh, that's kind of spooky. But then you have that one outlier person that takes it seriously, and because they are deeply, deeply unwell, they actually harm individuals. Those tend to be isolated events. If you're talking about some like huge underground occult organization that is systemically or systematically doing harm to children or other people for occult purposes, no, I disagree. It's not happening. It wouldn't be like most of that stuff when it happens, it's happening very publicly, like with the Nazi Party and Auschwitz and all the concentration camps and all of that. Is there weird stuff going on with the kids in the ice camps? Oh, I guarantee you. I absolutely guarantee you. Usually where you see something like that, there is abuse and abuse of power going on. But it doesn't have anything to do with the Illuminati in that capacity. That's what I mean by that. So Katt Williams, I do believe like that Katt Williams would have been intellectually advanced for his age around the community that he was in, most definitely, and maybe within the community at large. Do I believe that Katt Williams read 3,000 books a year? Absolutely not. That is hyperbole. That is a lie. And the thing is, Katt Williams talking about the Illuminati, to me, that's one of those instances where I believe that he's describing certain things accurately within Hollywood, absolutely. And I would even give him the $50 million thing that he said about his, what he felt was something that would be degrading to him personally, if not to another person. But for real, even if we weren't talking about queer sex, most people, like, even if someone offered me $50 million for like standard sex, like that would offend me personally. Because it offends me personally that someone thinks that I can be bought and sold, because I'm not a spicy worker. So I'm not saying that type of proposition is just degrading to everyone who is offered it, because spicy workers, unless they are into degradation or they are doing that as labor, they're fine, like they've signed up for that as long as it's consensual spicy work, you know? And also consensual spicy work to me, like you can't give someone no other options economically so that they have to take the choice of spicy work. That's also not consensual work. It's not. So those are my thoughts and feelings about that. I would I don't know about the amount or the amount of times that he was offered that, but I absolutely believe, just based on the people who he was dealing with, that amount of money sounds like a lot, obviously, to most of us, but to someone who like has billions of dollars, that's actually not that much. And it wouldn't shock me if something along those lines did happen to him, because people, frankly, like you can just watch it on like a regular channel, or like it's a corn channel, but like people are into like weird, like I'm saying it's weird, like there's kink shaming, but people are into like slave play stuff and race play stuff. But then you get into like the stuff that like Katt Williams is talking about is people who actually like get off on potentially specifically degrading men and potentially specifically degrading Black men. I do not know about the dress, like the Black men in dresses thing. I'm more in line with what ABBA from ABBA and Preach talked about, how that kind of stuff comes about. he didn't think that it was necessarily actually a humiliation ritual. It's more to do with like stupid, corny executives coming up with dumb, like scrape the bottom of the barrel ideas. I do believe that. However, it does kind of end up becoming a humiliation ritual, because if you say no to that thing, if you decline that, if you don't play ball, well, you're frankly not going to get those high dollar offers again. So it does end up becoming something like a humiliation ritual if somebody's not on board with like wearing a dress or whatever, and you simply won't have the sort of career that other people had because they went ahead and wore the dress or took the executive notes or whatever. There is a reason why someone like Katt Williams, or before him, Patrice O'Neal, did not have the same sort of success as other people. And Patrice O'Neal, by the way, dude, I'm going to tell you about this, but Patrice O'Neal is, like, if you think Katt Williams is offensive, Patrice O'Neal is like 20 billion times more offensive than Katt Williams. But Patrice O'Neal, I believe he spoke on the Opie and Anthony show about this very thing that goes on in Hollywood. And he does talk about it like a beast system, but he talks about it more in a way that it seems plausible. And the plausibility of it is just like, there are factions of people within Hollywood, and he talks about it like being ganged up. If you are not ganged up with some faction of people that has power in Hollywood, you're not going anywhere. And he, I believe, it was a long time ago that I listened to this, he talked about being in Spike Lee's gang. It's not actually a gang, it's just a clique of people, a social group that also is a business network, specifically within the entertainment industry. He was with He was with Spike Lee's group, and so he was getting offers from Spike Lee, and he was talking about getting all of the perks that come along from working with Spike Lee and that sort of an organization that he is fronting or associated with. And then one day Spike Lee asked him to, I don't know what it was, I don't remember, but Spike Lee asked him to do something, and I'm pretty sure it was fairly innocuous, but like Patrice wasn't really about it. I forget. But he told Spike Lee no, and then he never got another offer, because these things are very like transactional. And if someone sees you're not willing to play ball, they're just not going to play ball with you. And so that's why that it's not an organized conspiracy. It's not an organized group with like this master evil plan. Mainly, it's just weird people who have too much money and too much power doing weird crap. Like, that's what it is. And because they have so much money and power, the law doesn't affect them. And that's why it continually goes on. And then, yes, other people with money and power get involved with them. And then we have the little blackmail scenarios with Epstein and the whole bit. And then everybody's got information on everybody else. And then that's how that tends to work. They start doing all this weird stuff together. There's documentation on it. There is actual criminal activity on it, because for some reason, all the people with money and power, like, you hit like a threshold and it's like you have to start interacting with all these people. That's the thing that I don't really understand, like why that happens, but it seems to happen, at least in some capacity. But because I don't know, like, obviously I don't have any sort of money and power like that, so I wouldn't know. But for a lot of that stuff, I'm willing to give Katt Williams the benefit of the doubt, because he frankly has that life experience. He's the one hanging out with those people. I have no idea what those people are like. All I know is what other people talk about in the entertainment industry. But that's what I think about that. That's what I think about typically when people are saying something like Illuminati. That's what they mean. And also, for someone like Katt, there is like a touch of like homophobia and queerphobia. Like he's just not about that. And so when I'm saying they do weird stuff, I understand why people would say a bunch of like celebrities getting together and having like kinky or taboo sex with each other, like in a group. I can see why people would say that that is extremely weird. But for me, as long as everybody is an adult and everybody's consenting to everything, I don't give a shit what anybody does in a room altogether. Like for me, like I'm not going to participate in it, but I can't hate from outside the club either. But like I said, like I would not go. I would, if I got the invite, I would not go. But so that, like that kind of stuff, like people want to like make a big deal out of people just like on a kink scene pretty much. And that's not going to ruffle my feathers any. Like you've got to be doing something like non-consensually or like a crime against somebody in that way before I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's crazy. But anyway, I'm just saying, I'm explaining my use of the word weird when it comes to stuff like that, because for the majority of like the community, yeah, they're not like, it's pretty much a smaller percentage of the population that's into stuff like that, even at like the small like little local scenes and stuff like it. Most people aren't going to be doing that, or they're not going to be doing it regularly. The most that most people are going to get involved with is maybe like going to a strip club or something like that, or maybe like a little, oh, we're gonna have like a fun girls night, like at the, it's that kind of stuff. That's their walk on the wild side, and that's all it's ever gonna be. And frankly, when it comes to occultist or the OTO or whatever, are they having kinky sex magic group ritual orgies? Yeah, they're doing it. I don't really care. Because I mean, for all of them doing that, I don't see them having any type of real efficacy in the world. There are plenty of things that we attribute to people like Crowley and Jack Parsons, and their magical activity. There's no proof. So, I mean, we can believe that all we want. And like I said, I am talking about my beliefs. Even everything on this channel that I talk about, while I stand by it as an authentic expression of truth, obviously I can't tell you that anything that I'm saying is a fact, because to me, a fact has hard evidence. No, there is no hard quantifiable evidence that magic truly exists. Not yet, maybe not ever. So I can't in good conscience tell you that things are a fact, because for me, a fact does have quantifiable data behind it. I believe I am telling you the truth, or I am expressing authenticity, and I most definitely believe what I am saying about things. But if you ask me, Allison, is that a fact? I cannot tell you that that's a fact. I could be wrong. And for me, if someone's not giving the room enough to say, I could potentially be wrong, I wouldn't be listening to that person anyway. If you can't own up to the fact that you could be wrong about something, you're probably not somebody anybody should be listening to. So those are my thoughts on that. Anything else that I want to say about conspiracy or conspiracy theory? Oh, I guess the surveillance stuff, to me, that's not really a conspiracy theory. We are like in a surveillance state. Like that's all, like we surveil ourselves with our own phones and everything. So to me, that's not a conspiracy theory. Obviously data is all being harvested from everything, like we're all posting, but mostly that has to do with, like making money. Like that data mining is for like capitalizing off of you more effectively in general. I mean, I'm sure, like I don't understand it, but I'm sure that there's some sort of like widespread like data collection or something that like people who do actual like government espionage, like they have certain things that they look for. And obviously domestically, they monitor for stuff when there's like an actual threat to like the government, like the Proud Boy stuff and things like that. So there are certain phrases and things that are dinged. And of course there are people whose job it is to monitor certain communities and things like that that have been established as potential threats. That's been going on. So to me, that's not a conspiracy theory, but it's also not something that I think anybody should like be freaking paranoid about. Looking over their shoulder, freaked out to do or say anything. No, it's not like, I don't care. And I think most people don't really have to care. outside of the fact that anything, like when it comes to free speech and also the government overstepping its bounds, like when we say like, oh, we need to be able to monitor this and surveil this and do all this, like for emergency situations, like that's true. Like once you let them cross that line, it's over. So when people are saying like we want to walk back certain laws for that reason, I completely understand that. As far as caring about whether or not somebody is monitoring you in that way or surveilling you in that way. When I say I don't care about it, I don't mean to dismiss those people who are talking about political injustices and the government like doing weird stuff, like being able to do weird stuff to its own citizens underneath a law that they passed under duress. I agree with those people. Yes, we should care about that. But day to day, am I going to be super scared or whatever about like being targeted like by like magical CIA agents who are coming to like thwart me? No, I am not worried about that. And in the reads, it even comes out in a very benign way. But I felt the need to address that kind of stuff since like those particular reads are going more towards like a conspiratorial type of thing. I just hate the idea that I would be contributing to the degradation of someone's mental health. And obviously, I can't control that, but I also think that if I'm going to be talking about these sorts of things, that like it should be made public what I actually think about that stuff and what I actually think about the things that I'm saying, and that I would, of course, be willing to admit that I was wrong about something. So that's why I wanted to make this video, because I do think it's not okay to just kind of be cavalierly talking about this sort of stuff when talking about it in this sort of ungrounded way is what leads to stuff like Q. And though I have, like I said in one of the discussions, that Q was one of the last manifestations of the cult of the Jack. And I stand by that as well. I know that's very weird languaging to put that in, but they failed the trials. They were not working with the Jack. The Jack was running the show there, but it had to do with how people were interacting with that energy. It has to do with people being prone to mass hysteria, because mass hysteria is real. And I would say that a lot of magic, like I said, magical attacks and things like that, well, I mean, yeah, that is the CIA, because most of their stuff is psychological warfare. And that is predominantly how like actual like occultist magical attack works as well. It is psychological terrorism. So if you feed into it and get hysterical and whip yourself up, and then other people jump right in and go along with you, then yeah, it's gonna get really bad really quick. And those types of people are very, very easily controlled. So I would always say, like, be very mindful of something that is like running rampant with fear energy. Anything at all. And if even when I'm trying to keep this relatively like on an even keel, if you ever feel like like really, really afraid, scared, or terrified of something that I'm talking about, please just leave the reads. Like, please don't subject yourself to that. I do not want that for you, and it is not my intention whatsoever, even being honest about the weird nature of certain beings. So in that segue, let's talk about Q and ARGs. So ARGs are alternate reality games. And these are sort of like LARPs, but the way they are formatted is that typically what someone is doing is they are covertly introducing a narrative, usually through some sort of interactive media. So ARG games typically start on the internet. And this will be like a series of like YouTube videos that someone discovers, which will lead them to a particular website, which will lead them to a particular forum. And this entire ARG is sort of one big mass puzzle that a lot of people on the internet are getting together and solving. And so people, when they get effectively hooked into an ARG, because what they're doing is giving you a mystery, right? So they're hooking you with the mystery and you're feeling like a detective, like figuring all this stuff out. You get very, very invested in that. And there have been instances of people participating in ARG games that they did not know, ARG games, that's redundant. There have been instances of people participating in ARGs who didn't know that they were ARGs, and when it was revealed that it was in fact a game, they got like violently angry. Like they were mad about it because they were so invested in what they thought was a real thing. Why that is of interest to me is because that is directly tied to manifestation. And it is directly tied into the manifestation practice of people like David Icke, Alex Jones, Tim Pool. Tim Pool's a little bit less, like Alex Jones and especially David Icke and people like them participate in this sort of technique a lot more. What they do is they take like real world people and real world news events and they construct a narrative involving them, except like David Icke, I'm pretty sure is like a true, like I'm pretty sure he's a true believer. I'm pretty certain. I don't know, I could be wrong, but like I think he believes what he's talking about. I don't think Alex Jones really believes what he's talking about. Most of it anyway. Maybe some of it I don't believe it. And I definitely don't think Tim Pool believes a damn thing that he says. But they spin, and it's not really a game though for them. But they take real world events and real people, and then they create these alternate realities. And large scale, that is also what Fox News does. And to a certain extent, most media conglomerates, like they have a particular viewpoint that they want you to fall in line with. So they create a sort of reality bubble here. And the further the reach and influence of that particular person, the stronger that reality bubble becomes. Until literally, which we all know, if someone fell into the Fox News rabbit hole and the QAnon thing, those people do, like literally do not live in the same reality that the rest of us do. And you can make the argument that none of us technically lives in the same perception of reality as other people. I'm fine with that. Like, that's why I say consensus reality. But most rational people, right, do tend to agree in general with consensus reality, at least to operate. And I know when I am talking about something that diverges radically from consensus reality, being beings and dimensions and all of that, even though that is much less of a radical thing to talk about now than it once was, there is still stigma attached to that. So I'm aware when I'm doing it, and I'm kind of like, well, you know, this is my truth at the moment. This is my authenticity. I believe in what I'm saying. And if I need to make an apology later for something, I most certainly will. But like I've double checked on all of my stuff and I still feel good about it. And that I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because as far as I'm concerned, I am telling the truth. I'm not lying and I'm not trying to like create anything. However, that is something that needs to be understood. The yellow transmissions follow a similar type of pattern, except I am specifically involving other people. And it's not that other people aren't involved in the Alex Jones thing, but when other people get involved in a narrative that you are telling, then it has more of a tendency to become real. That's why I tend to put warnings on things like the yellow transmissions, and I try and reiterate over and over and over again on energy reads, like just the standard general reads, that if you are watching something that you do not want to manifest, you need to stop watching it. If you don't want something to happen that I am talking about, do not contribute your energy to it. Because it's not that it's not true, it's true in the energy. The Alex Jones stuff and the David Icke stuff, that's kind of like dead channels. Well, the Alex Jones stuff is mostly just fucking fake. Okay, he might have been talking about something real back in the day with like the Bohemian Grove stuff, like in general, but now It's lies, it's capitalism. He's just doing that because he knows if he speaks emphatically enough and maintains the reality bubble that these people are all in, that he's going to continue to make money. That's my belief about him. Same thing, especially about Tim Pool. He knows if he keeps spitting this narrative about civil war or whatever, that people are going to want to dwell in that little reality with him. Why? Because it makes them feel like important superheroes fighting all of the powers and the injustice. And it's not that we don't have the ability to do that, but it tends to look way more normal than what they're talking about. Even when I'm talking about people contributing to the mega happy timeline and human liberation, I'm not telling you that you're all gonna have like whacked out psi ability and going to be like flying around and like, in order to do total human liberation, all we have to do is have mass magical group sex, and that's going to contact the aliens, and then they're going to come down, and then we're all going to be liberated. No, what I'm telling you to do is to work on decolonizing yourself, share with other people, help other people, do the work of forgiveness and union, come together with people that you don't necessarily agree with, but that you do believe can do the work of the greater good. The work of total human liberation, the real world work, doesn't look like anything especially special. It looks like going to therapy. It looks like getting sober. It looks like working on forgiveness stuff with your family. It looks like breaking intergenerational trauma cycles. It looks like healing your mother and father wounds, or like the anger that you have towards men or towards women or towards queer people or black people or white people. That's what it looks like. It's very, very practical work. And a lot of the narratives that people like Alex Jones, Tim Pool, and David Icke are spinning, and all of the Galactic Federation stuff as well, are designed to remove you from that work. They're designed to put you in a fantasy land and have you running around like a bunch of hysterical people shouting about Majestic 12 and whatever else and the adrenochrome babies and this and that, and none of that is real. It's not real. And all that is also designed, I'm saying designed, it's just convenient, it's not a plan, but once y'all are into that, you can be very easily exploited, taken advantage of, controlled, and when I say bought and sold, I just mean you'll buy into, like, you will purchase tickets to certain things. Whoever's upholding that narrative for you and charging, like, for a show, or for, a survival bucket, or whatever, you will be more inclined to purchase from that person who is upholding your particular dimensional reality bubble. That's what that is. And so when I talk about the yellow transmissions and ARGs, I want you to be very aware that those are magical techniques. Those yellow transmissions especially, just listening to them, I am telling you, there is active magic going on in those reads. And and discussions and things like that. If you do not want to participate in that, from what I have described, you absolutely should not be listening to it. You absolutely should not be contributing energy to it, because I absolutely believe in what I'm talking about, and I'm telling you, it's not any damn ARG. But it operates magically by the same principle, because in order to get reality to change drastically, you have to shift the Overton window of consensus reality. And that's how you do that, through narrative, through media, through story, through propaganda, through political influence, through manipulating people's emotions. They all say facts don't care about your feelings. Garbage bullshit. Feelings don't care about facts. Human beings don't care about facts. They care about their emotions, what hooks into their emotions for the most part. I would say human beings should care more about facts. You should. At least when it comes to consensus reality, because I still put forth, though I believe in what I am talking about, I can't tell people what to do, because it is not up to one person to decide who does what with consensus reality. And that is why the 7 jump, while at the macrocosmic level there is some conductor or whatever, the way that conductor gets power is through the collective consensus of other people who believe in that person and who are attributing their power to them. That's how that happens. You are choosing a representative. Choose the form of your destructor. That's what's happening there. And so no one can change consensus reality in that way without consent of a decent percentage of the populace. Because even though QAnon and those people live in their own little reality bubble, consensus reality hasn't changed. We're just looking at that going, wow, that is messed up. And most people, their reality bubbles don't quite diverge as strongly. And most people aren't typically going to raise an eyebrow at that because we're talking about belief in angels or belief in God or like something else. Right? But like most people, they're going to look at that and be like, okay, yeah, that's weird. But they're not going to have the same attitude towards it as they do to something like Q or Heaven's Gate or the Branch Davidians or things like that. Like there is a point where it's just like, okay, things are okay. So, apologies if that does offend any of y'all. If any of y'all are very, very big Alex Jones, Tim Pool, David Icke, Teal Swan, Hay House, Gaia TV people, it's not me. It is not for me to tell you that you should not be engaging with those things because I do not know what your journey is. I do not know what your personal authenticity is, but I cannot just not say something that I believe is true. I think I've said all I need to say at the moment. If I think of anything else, I'll just make a follow-up video. If I change my mind about anything or come to believe something different, I will certainly say that. I know, there's something else I did want to talk about because the PSA about prophecy will have been released like way before this video is. And so I also wanted to verify, after I ran into that issue with that created being, I went back and like triple checked the stuff about the yellow transmissions and the white transmissions with like all of my people and everything else, pulled reads on it. All of that stuff is fine. The energy on that is still fine. I haven't made, to my personal understanding, I have not made, at least on my path for whatever it is, and the expression of who I really am, I have not made any major mistakes with any of that. And it is not any sort of major mistake or doing significant amounts of harm to people for me to continue talking about what I'm talking about at this point. Because at least, even if you don't believe in anything that I'm saying, I do think that if you're someone who tends to believe in certain like other things like Gaia TV, I think understanding some of the history behind that and what potentially is going on there is valuable for people to hear. So even if you don't agree with me, maybe I can change your mind about some of this other stuff that I do think is actively harmful. And even if I just do that, I consider it a win. Because the last thing I want is for anybody to fall into anything like QAnon. That's not at all productive. And I think it hurts people. And I think it hurts people's mental health. And I don't think it's good for the country either. Most of the stuff that's going on with all of that, I don't think is good for anybody. So I am not going to do the outro. Those are my thoughts about this at the moment. I am sorry, because I just talked off the top of my head. This is why for some of these chit chat videos, I tend to have notes because I sound more organized when I do write things down. But I just wanted to talk about it in an informal way. So you know straight up what my thoughts and beliefs are, why I'm doing what I'm doing, what I think is harmful and not harmful, and of course, when I think you should be listening, or if I think you should be listening to something. You need to understand exactly what you're participating in from my perspective magically to properly consent to it. That's the big thing. There is nothing wrong with what I am doing, but you need to be absolutely aware of what's going on magically with that so you can say definitively yes or no. That is the most important thing, and that's what I believe is very, very different from me and someone like David Icke. So I will leave you with that. And if you are interested in these topics and you appreciate me being transparent about these sorts of things, I appreciate it. I know this is more of the niche stuff that the people who are more in line with the mega happy timeline and the general message don't really care about. But for those niche people who do happen to be listening to me about the white and yellow transmissions and things like it, you absolutely need to know. So I hope you're all having a great day.